This is very serious. Jesus is calling for you. Only you. Important alert. Very bad news awaits today. If you ignore this, you will regret it and cry deeply. Open it quickly. My beloved child, listen closely, because the moment your eyes landed on this message, something shifted around you. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you today. Carries a weight that your heart has already felt, even if your mind hasn't understood it yet. My dear heart, pause for a moment, because the instant your eyes landed on these words, something in the atmosphere around you shifted. You may not understand it yet, but your spirit felt the pull before your mind asked why. There are moments in life that arrive quietly yet carry weight far beyond the surface, and this moment is one of them. The timing is not random, the feeling is not accidental. Something meaningful is unfolding, even as you read this line. You've been carrying a pressure inside you lately. Something heavy, something unspoken, something that made the past few days feel off balance. Maybe you thought it was just stress, or tiredness, or a wave of emotion you couldn't quite name. But deep down you sensed a deeper reason, and that is why you're here now. You were guided to this moment before something in your day could pull you in the wrong direction. Take a breath, my cherished soul, and let these words settle gently. There is a subtle stirring happening around your life, something that was about to unfold without your awareness. A misunderstanding, an unexpected reaction, or an emotional moment was forming around you like a quiet ripple. It wasn't meant to scare you, but it could have shaken your peace if you walked into it unprepared. But you didn't walk into it, because you were called here first. There has been someone near your life whose emotions have been unpredictable, either in their silence, their shifting tone, or their sudden distance. You may have sensed it without knowing why. Their actions aren't random either. They've been wrestling with thoughts they haven't spoken out loud, and their uncertainty was on the edge of spilling into your world today. It would have left you confused, questioning, or emotionally drained. But grace stepped in before it reached you. Stay with this moment, because clarity is beginning to form where confusion once sat. You have been walking through days filled with signals, small ones, quiet ones, ones you tried to ignore. A strange heaviness, a feeling that something was off, a sense that someone wasn't telling you everything. You may have brushed it away, but your spirit noticed even when your mind didn't. And today, everything lines up. Your path is being redirected, not for fear, but for protection. Before a misunderstanding could take root in your heart, you were guided to a message designed to steady you. You were never meant to walk into the emotional uncertainty, waiting ahead without clarity. And now, that clarity is beginning here. In this very moment. You've been carrying more strength than people realize. You've been showing up even when your heart was tired. You've been smiling even when the weight on your shoulders grew heavier. Jesus has seen every bit of it, every tear, every doubt, every quiet prayer spoken only inside your chest. You haven't been alone for one moment, even when you felt like you were. There is a shift happening around your name, a decision someone else is making, a conversation that might involve you, or a feeling someone is battling internally, is moving closer to your world. Their actions may not reflect their true intentions, and that could have hurt you if you didn't see clearly first. But now you do. Now you're ready. Something significant is approaching your path, something that will change the tone of your week and the direction of your emotions. What once looked like looming bad news is already transforming into a moment of empowerment. What felt like pressure is becoming purpose. What once seemed confusing is aligning into something meaningful. Your heart is preparing for the next step, even if you don't realize it yet. The energy around you is shifting in a way that reveals truth before it arrives. You're stepping into clarity, strength, and spiritual stability. And this moment right here is the turning point. Stay close, because the deeper reason behind this shift is about to reveal itself, my dear soul. Stay with this moment, because what comes next reaches deeper than you realize. There is something unfolding around your life that has been sitting just outside your awareness, and now the curtain is beginning to lift. You may have felt emotional tension recently, strange waves of energy, moments where someone's actions didn't match their words, or a sudden silence that left you questioning your intuition. None of it was your imagination. Your spirit picked up on something before your eyes could see it, and that is why you were guided back here now. You've been sensing a shift in someone connected to your story. Their mood, their silence, their hesitation. All of it created ripples in your heart. You tried to make sense of it, but the more you thought, the less clarity you found. That's because the truth wasn't ready to come forward until now. They have been holding emotions they don't yet know how to express. Their uncertainty wasn't meant to hurt you, but it was beginning to press against your peace, and Jesus stepped in before that pressure reached its breaking point. You weren't meant to carry confusion today. You were meant to receive insight. Pause for a moment and feel this truth settling. Something was forming that could have misled your heart, an impulsive message, a misunderstood reaction, or a moment of fear from someone who didn't know how to articulate what they feel. You would have taken it personally. You would have absorbed it as rejection, disappointment, or emotional distance. But that was never the reality. Their struggle is with their own heart, not with you. There is a storm inside them, not around you. Your presence in their life has stirred something deep, something unexpected, something they never planned for. Instead of facing it, they froze. Instead of speaking, they held back. Instead of stepping forward, they retreated into their thought. They weren't preparing to push you away. They were preparing to understand the depth of their own feelings. And that is the moment you were being protected from today. Stay with this, because the emotional shift is not finished yet. You've been sensing their energy more than their words. And energy never lies. While their outer behavior may seem inconsistent, their inner world has been focused on you more than you know. Their silence has not been empty. It has been filled with thoughts they haven't been brave enough to voice. This is why your spirit felt unsettled. You were standing in the cross-current of their confusion and their desire, their fear and their truth, their hesitation and their longing. They were on the verge of letting fear dictate their next action. That action could have created temporary pain, even though they never intended for you to feel any. But grace intervened. Your heart is being prepared, not punished. Your intuition has been sharpening for a reason. Jesus has been shielding you from emotional chaos and placing you in a posture of awareness instead of reaction. Today was a crossroads, and you were pulled toward the path that leads to clarity, not misunderstanding. Take another deep breath, because the next part of this unfolding is significant. Someone has been carrying more emotion for you than they've been willing to admit, even to themselves. Their heart is awakening to a truth they didn't expect, a truth they tried to bury under logic or fear. But feelings do not disappear simply because someone tries to ignore them. And their feelings for you have been growing silently, steadily, and stubbornly. That growth is what created the tension you sensed. What felt like distance was actually emotional overwhelm. What felt like mixed signals was a heart learning how to speak honestly. What felt like uncertainty was the beginning of clarity form. Slowly inside them, you were not losing them. You were standing at the turning point before their truth rises. The emotional heaviness surrounding your week was the build-up before breakthrough. You've been walking through the pressure right before clarity begins. Every strange moment, every silent pause, every shift you couldn't explain, they were signs pointing you toward this moment. Jesus called you here, because what's coming next requires an open heart, not a fearful one. You are being guided toward understanding, not confusion, toward connection, not distance, toward emotional truth, not emotional chaos. The situation you were worried about is not falling apart. It is unfolding. Stay close, because the deeper truth behind today's message is preparing to reveal itself in the next part. My cherished soul, stay with me, because what you're about to understand will bring light to everything that has been confusing you lately. The emotional tension you've been carrying wasn't random. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't you overthinking. Your spirit has been detecting a shift long before your mind could translate it, and that sensitivity is part of why you were guided here again. You have a deeper intuition than you give yourself credit for. The quiet heaviness, the unexpected waves of emotion, the way someone's silence echoed louder than their words. These were all signals. You weren't imagining anything. You were sensing a change happening around someone connected to your life, a change they were too overwhelmed to express clearly, a change that could have hurt your heart if you interpreted it without guidance. But now, truth is stepping forward. There is someone whose presence in your story has always felt significant to your spirit, even before you could logically explain it. Recently, their actions may have left you questioning everything, questioning their intention, questioning their feelings, even questioning your own worth. But the confusion was never about your value. It was about their emotional uncertainty. They've been battling thoughts they don't know how to put into words. They've been feeling emotions that came faster and stronger than they expected. They've been trying to control something inside them that only grew the more they suppressed it. And because they didn't know how to handle it, they hesitated. That hesitation created an imbalance, and you felt it immediately. But here's the deeper truth. They were never preparing to let you go. They were preparing to understand what you mean to them. Stay with this, because it matters. If you had seen their next reaction without clarity, it could have pierced your heart in a way that lingered. A delayed message, a distant tone, a moment of avoidance. They could have pushed you into believing something that wasn't true. But what seemed like emotional withdrawal was actually emotional overwhelm. Their feelings didn't disappear. They intensified, and they frightened them. There is something powerful forming in their heart. Something they can no longer deny. They've reached a point where the truth is louder than their fear, even if they haven't spoken yet. You sensed their inner conflict before they said a word. That pull you felt wasn't your imagination. It was their heart tugging at yours. And now, the energy around them is beginning to shift. Where fear once clouded their actions, clarity is beginning to break through. Where hesitation once held them back, emotional truth is starting to rise. Where silence once created confusion, a deeper conversation is slowly forming in their spirit. This is why your heart has been restless. This is why your emotions have been heightened. You are standing at the edge of a revelation you weren't meant to miss. Take a breath, my dear heart, because the next part of this unfolding requires your calmness. You were brought here to receive understanding before the moment arrives. You were guided here because the truth that's coming is tied directly to your next season, your next decision, and your emotional growth. Nothing about this is accidental. You've been strengthening silently. You've been healing without applause. You've been walking through emotional shadows without shutting down. Jesus has watched every step, seen every hidden tear, heard every silent question, felt every moment you pushed forward, even when you didn't have clarity. And because your heart matters, He stepped between you and a misunderstanding that could have wounded your spirit. Someone who matters to you was moments away from reacting out of fear rather than truth. Their confusion could have spilled into your day. Their hesitation could have shaken your confidence. Their mixed signals could have led you to believe something false about yourself. But their feelings never disappeared. They were struggling with their intensity. You weren't meant to decipher their confusion alone. You were meant to receive divine clarity before it touched you. And now you are. This is not the end of your connection, your peace, or your story. This is the transition, where uncertainty begins to turn into revelation. The silence you feared will not last. The distance you sensed is not permanent. The confusion you carried is dissolving. Something is shifting inside them, and it is moving them toward honesty, not away from you. Stay grounded, my chosen heart. The truth that has been hidden is preparing to rise. The emotional fog is lifting, and what you've been sensing beneath the surface is about to reveal itself more clearly than ever before. The next part brings you closer to the core of this transformation. My treasured soul, stay here for a moment, Becca. Use the path ahead is becoming clearer, and you are closer to the truth than you've ever been. Everything you've been feeling, the uncertainty, the pressure, the emotional shifts, has not been a coincidence. Your heart has been standing in the middle of a silent transformation, one that someone else has been experiencing internally, but hasn't known how to express. And now, those hidden pieces are beginning to rise toward the surface. You've been sensing something in their energy long before any words were spoken. You felt their hesitation, their pullback, their quietness, even when they pretended nothing was wrong. You noticed the way their presence felt different, the way their responses felt slower, the way their emotions felt tangled. These shifts may have made you question your worth, your intuition, or your place in their life. But all along, the truth had nothing to do with your value. It had everything to do with their fear. They have been fighting a battle inside themselves, a battle between the truth of their feelings and the fear of what those feelings could become, a battle between wanting to step closer to you and wanting to protect themselves from vulnerability, a battle between desire and doubt, hope and hesitation, courage and uncertainty, and you, being as intuitive as you are, felt every ripple of it. What you sensed as distance was actually emotional overwhelm. What you interpreted as silence was a mind trying to gather courage. What you felt as confusion was their heart pressing up against a truth they didn't expect to face. They've been carrying emotions that grew too deep to hide, and instead of expressing them, they froze. That moment of freezing is what created the tension you've been walking through. But here is the turning point. Their heart is beginning to catch up to their truth. The internal storm they've been wrestling with is losing its inte. The fog is clearing. Their clarity is rising. This shift was not something you could see with your eyes, but your spirit recognized it immediately. That's why you felt the recent heaviness. That's why your thoughts felt louder. That's why your emotions felt heightened. You were sensing the beginning of their breakthrough. Jesus knew you might misinterpret their confusion as rejection. He knew you might blame yourself for their silence. He knew you might assume their distance meant their feelings were fading. None of that was true. Their hesitation is not evidence of disconnection, it is evidence of depth. People do not become overwhelmed by feelings that mean nothing to them. They do not pause because they are indifferent. They do not pull back when their heart is untouched. Their uncertainty came from the magnitude of what they feel, not the lack of it. Stay with this truth, because the moment ahead requires your awareness, not fear. You are guided here so your heart would be steady before their next step unfolds. You are meant to receive insight before you witness the shift with your own eyes. Without this understanding, you may have mistaken their next action as indifference, when it will actually be their first move toward honesty. Their heart is softening, their walls are loosening, their clarity is forming. Something inside them is beginning to align, a realization, a confession, a deeper truth, rising through the cracks of their hesitation. This is why you've been feeling their presence so strongly even in their silence. They are thinking, they are reflecting, they are replaying moments with you. They are questioning why their emotions have grown so strong when they tried to control them for so long. You were not imagining their pull. You were feeling their awakening. Every pause, every shift, every unspoken moment has been guiding both of you toward a point of emotional alignment. The build-up you felt was not the ending of a chapter, it was the preparation for a new one. And you're standing right at the edge. Take another breath, my dear heart, because the deeper truth is almost ready to reveal itself. You have been protected from misunderstanding, prepared for clarity, and guided toward emotional stability, so that when the moment arrives, you will recognize it instantly. The story is entering the part where everything begins to connect. Their silence, their hesitation, their strange behavior, your intuition, your heaviness, your clarity. Nothing was random. Nothing was accidental. Nothing was without purpose. You are approaching the moment where the truth will finally speak. Stay close, because the next part carries the final revelation, the one your heart has been waiting for. My beloved soul, stay with me, because this final part carries the truth your heart has been moving toward. Since the moment you first felt something shift inside you, everything you've sensed, every emotional ripple, every moment of confusion, every quiet heaviness, was leading here. You were never imagining the change. You were never overthinking. Your spirit was simply ahead of what your eyes could see. And now, what was hidden is beginning to step into the light. The person whose silence weighed on you, whose hesitation puzzled you, whose emotional shift stirred up so many questions. This entire time, they have been trying to understand feelings that grew faster than they could process. Their distance was not rejection. Their silence was not disinterest. Their uncertainty was not a sign that they were drifting away. Their heart has been overwhelmed, because the emotions they feel for you are deeper than anything they've allowed themselves to admit. They weren't preparing to leave. They were preparing to face the truth. They have been carrying thoughts about you that they never intended to share, not because they wanted to hide them, but because they feared what those thoughts meant. They feared missteps, vulnerability, intensity, the possibility of being misunderstood. They feared the strength of what they feel. But fear cannot silence truth forever, not when the truth grows the way theirs has. And here is what you need to understand now. Their heart has reached a point where the truth can no longer stay buried. That quiet tug you felt, the pull inside your chest, the sense that something was rising beneath the surface, it was real. It was their emotions reaching inward toward you, even before their words could catch up. The heaviness you carried wasn't a warning of loss. It was the weight of their realization forming into something undeniable. For a long time they tried to convince themselves they weren't feeling what they were feeling. They tried to shrink it, ignore it, outrun it, hide behind silence or logic or distractions. But emotions born from a genuine place can't be silenced by fear, and the feeling they have for you has become larger than the fear that once held them back. They've reached a crossroads inside themselves. One path leads to hiding, the other leads to honesty, and they are finally leaning toward honesty. You were not brought here to be scared. You were brought here to be prepared. If this moment had reached you without clarity, you may have misread everything. Their tone, their silence, their pause. You may have believed the story fear was whispering, instead of the story their heart is starting to reveal. That misunderstanding could have created a wound that was never meant to touch you. But now, you stand steady, clear, protected, ready. Jesus stepped between you and the confusion before it could harm your heart. He guided you through this message so that when the truth arrives, you will recognize it immediately. You won't question your worth. You won't spiral into doubt. You won't assume the worst. Your heart will be prepared for what's coming, not with fear, but with calm recognition. Because here is the truth you've been sensing. They care about you more deeply than they've allowed themselves to show. Their hesitation was never a measure of your value. It was a measure of their own fear. Their silence didn't reflect their lack of feeling. It reflected how strong those feelings had become. Their emotional distance wasn't a sign of disconnection. It was the pressure of connection growing faster than they knew what to do with. And now, they are reaching the point where they can no longer run from it. Your presence has touched them. Your spirit has shifted something inside them. Your energy has awakened emotions they didn't expect. What you have been feeling is the beginning of their clarity forming. Your intuition has been picking up on their awakening before their words catch up. You are standing at the edge of the moment where everything will begin to align. The signs, the emotions, the silence, the heaviness, the pull, the tension, and the truth. This is not the ending of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one built on honesty, clarity, and a deeper connection than you realized was possible. Something profound is moving toward you, something meaningful, something long suppressed finally rising to the surface. The breakthrough you've been feeling is no longer approaching, it is arriving. Stay open, stay steady, stay aligned. Because after this, the truth you've been sensing in your heart will begin unfolding in ways you cannot miss.